welcome to Green Energy Futures. Well, on a family trip to Fort St. John this summer, we stopped at the BC Hydro EV charger at Mile Zero on the Alaska Highway in Dawson Creek. There was a guy filming himself, charging his Ford F-150 Lightning. The logo on the side of the truck said, "Trucked Up." And curiosity killed the cat.
Sure. I'm Simon Lindley. I'm with Trucked Up EVs. I got a YouTube channel, and my primary focus is just geeking out over electric trucks.
And so you started this Trucked Up EVs channel on YouTube. What's it all about?
As I said, Trucked Up EVs celebrates folk who love pickup trucks. You know, they like doing truck-related things with them. But they're curious about what's going on in the EV space. You know, they're seeing it sometimes as a threat, but they're also seeing that things are changing and they're not wanting to lose the lifestyle that they embrace. So it's about getting excited about the transformation of the pickup truck, basically, is what Trucked Up EVs is.
So were you always a pickup truck kind of guy? Like, what prompted you to get into all this?
Well, I'm more of just a geek. I was one of those kids who wanted to have the Back to the Future Mr. Fusion powered DeLorean. So when EVs came around, I was like, my ship had arrived, you know. So I got my first EV truck for work. I was going to get the Cybertruck, but after waiting 4.5 years for the triangle with wheels, I went in another direction, as many did, and I got my first EV truck, an XLT Lightning. And I soon realized just how much of a game changer it was, like for work, for life in general. But there's so much misinformation out there. And I really wanted to cut through all of that and have fun in the meantime. And YouTube's by far the best venue to do that. So it allows me to be an idiot and allows me to help others navigate whether an EV truck is the best use case for them. And sometimes it's not. But either way, it's kind of my opportunity to contribute to the narrative.
So you said EVs were a game changer for you. What blew your mind? What are the things you're thinking of? Like when you first got it and you thought, oh, this is better. I like this. What were those things?
They're just so stinking efficient. You know, almost everything we do as people, you know, it requires us to find new ways to do more with the same or less. You know, and then it's kind of just bringing that down to the personal level. You know, it's just a low means of locomotion, you know, like anything else, no different than other mediums. But when over 90% of what I charge in goes to my tires, not out in heat, you know, there's nothing that can even come close to do the same. Nothing. So, you know, horses were more efficient than walking. You know, steam was more efficient than sails. Gas made more sense than horses. But EVs are like a step change.
So you're not feeding alfalfa to your light?
I've tried, you know. I really want to do the banana peel thing at some point in my life. But yeah.
Okay, you said one of your big missions in this new endeavor of yours, which is kind of a cool endeavor, was to fight, I think the way you put it to me was FUD and misinformation. What the heck are you talking about?
Fear, uncertainty, and doubt. I mean, the best way to get people to not do something is scare the crap out of them. You know, so fear works, doubt works. If you put just a little kernel of doubt in someone's mind, they'll run the other way, especially when it's what's coming is disrupting. When it's going to disrupt someone's life or disrupt what they're used to, it's this has been going on for ages. I don't want to go negative with stuff, you know, the tobacco industry. And if you scare people enough about change, they won't change. So there's a lot of vested interests in ensuring that EVs never take off. And it's often an aggressive form of kind of a protectionism that relies on bending truth, taking one kernel of truth and extrapolating on it with buckets full of bunk. So the best way of combating that, action speaks louder than words. So when someone says, oh, you can't do that with an EV truck, I go and freaking do it. When the typical garbage that has no ground in fact, such as, fire risk of an EV battery, I physically point out that, ICE stands for internal combustion engine. It's a controlled explosion of highly volatile fuels that like to start on fire. So there's like 20 times more chance that your gas car is going to blow up than an EV battery. But if you throw proven, verifiable data in people's face and you talk in a condescending way with people who believe otherwise, they're almost always going to side with opinion and a belief over fact and knowledge, because it doesn't require change. It's emotional. It's scary to take on things that are so unknown. So, I'm just as guilty on many fronts in my life. I'm an old fart, and I have trouble sometimes making change. So it's my job with the channel to visually demonstrate those truths in an entertaining way that's inclusive and respectful, rather than condescending or exclusive, is kind of my goal.
I do run into those all the time. In fact, I was just commenting on some of my own stories today. I did a story on electric buses and heard those two things. And
Right.
I was almost reluctant to use 10 or 20 times safer because it just seems so crazy that they would say
so
that.
outrageous. But the numbers that came out of Norway were 33 times, and they can show that because like 80% of every vehicle on the road now in Norway is an EV.
So
And
I'm feeling guilty about exaggerating when I use the truth.
Oh, that's beautiful.
So listen, you to get this thing off the ground, what made you decide to do the YouTube channel and do this? Like, where'd you get the idea? You don't seem like the kind of guy who would leap to YouTube and start driving a truck around.
Okay. Well, I actually started my adult life in arts and performing arts, and I went to art college and I did fine arts. I was a sculptor. I've been writing my whole life, and I always couldn't make a dime because everything that I loved doing made nothing. So I always had to do a side gig to pay for what I loved. And I spent 45 years doing side gigs that became the main gig, and I never did my love gig. So I wanted to get back to creating. I wanted to get back to editing and writing. I wanted to get back to creative medium. And what's one thing where I could do music, art, writing, creative, and possibly get paid? And that turned out to be YouTube. So it just seemed the perfect venue for what I wanted to do. And I just got tired. I mean, this isn't getting any, more color in it. So I figured young until dead, wake up and do the things you love doing, get on with living or get on with dying. So I just decided to get on with living. And I have a t-shirt that says never a dull moment. And I plan on living that and just being a kid until I croak. And YouTube allows me to do that, celebrating something I'm really passionate about. So it just fits.
So you combine your a couple of passions there, your geekiness plus your artsy stuff, and you got bingo.
Yeah, and I'm a geek. I love tech, and EVs just fascinate me. You're driving around with almost no moving parts. When I first got my EV truck, and they said, "Well, here you go," and I went, "What do you mean here I go? Like, aren't you going to go through the thing about my maintenance schedule?" And they said, change the windshield wiper fluid and rotate your tires.
Yeah, my wife's dealership tried to get her to bring her car in early. She bought a Kona for maintenance, and so she made the appointment. And then I said, "Can you phone them back and ask them what they're going to do?" And actually, it turned out she didn't need to go because I looked at the website online, and they don't need a lot of maintenance checks. Certainly not as many as the dealership was trying to apply. And you don't need to rotate your tires every 5,000 kilometers. So, okay, so let's get to it. You really decided to do something dramatic to get your channel kicked off. You decided to do something earthy, like you decided to go out and touch people. What did you do that to kick off your channel?
Sounds like a Yellow Pages ad. For all us old people, we know what Yellow Pages ads are. I got this crazy idea. Like I said, you've got to go out and do things. So, someone said, "Oh, well, you can't, drive up north with a EV truck." So I went to the Yukon. Well, you can't go all the way around the province with an EV truck. You know, you're going to get stranded. You better have a generator in the back. You're never going to get any. So I drove the entire province of BC. And I kept hearing this FUD, this constant misinformation coming up about what I couldn't do with the truck. So I decided, well, I'll just go do all of it. And I thought, what a great way of building a community and getting to meet my truck top guys and gals who are watching my channel. Even though it's tiny, it's growing very fast. So, you know, I went from my very first video, anniversary today was the first video that I put out, and it had like 4 views and 1 like. And I've grown to just under 3,000 subscribers in that little window of time. And my videos are actually getting watched in the thousands rather than in a dozen or hundreds. And I wanted to meet with people. I didn't care how many that was. If it was one person in Winnipeg, then I'd go meet one person in Winnipeg. And I went on the road and I did this crazy trucked up Canada-wide coffee stop tour. And I went to I had this crazy idea, and I just went and I ranked every single province. I didn't just drive the Trans-Canada Highway. I went north, south, east, west. I went everywhere someone would want to go with a truck, and to see what problems would arise. And then I ranked the provinces. You know, I drove as much of every province as I could. And this is a stinking huge country. And then I gave each province a trucked up stamp of approval. Or if they were not doing well, then they got the other stamp, which I can't say in an interview.
Is it rhyme?
Yes, it rhymes. And it's the stamp of shame. So anyway, I held these trucked up coffee stops to meet with my trucked up guys and gals along the way, which was very enlightening and helpful as far as feedback. I saw how people were using their EV trucks. I couldn't believe how these things are being used. And you can't do many of these things with an internal combustion truck. So those are future episodes as I went along. So there's crazy, exciting things that are happening in several provinces too. And I was just blown away by the distinct differences also in approaches from province to province. That was very revealing.
Well, this is not something you see your average young YouTuber doing. They'd be absolutely horrified about meeting with their viewers. And so I think that's what's the old fashioned thing that is tried and true. Like tell folks where we met.
If I recall, I might be wrong in this, but I think it was Dawson Creek. I think it was mile 0. I think we were using some of the new installs next to a farmer's market, if I recall. And I think you and I were there just as those DC fast chargers had gone live. They were part of the new electric highway of BC. But the best thing for, old, curmudgeons like us is, you park next to a charger and we can talk like we're outside a post office for 2 hours. And that's part of the journey that was so exciting, because every time I charged, I met someone new. And
you also stopped in the local coffee shop.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I was jacked up on caffeine for 2 months. So yeah, it was great.
Okay, so you did this tour. Let's summarize the tour, big picture, really quickly. Like how far did you go? Give me the big picture, all in one sentence, kind of description of the tour.
Okay, well, I can't give you all of it because there's upcoming videos on it. But basically, I went right across the country, province to province, and I used every kind of charging network you can think of. I downloaded a plethora of charging apps. I basically was able to uncover where a lot of the challenges and some of the exciting developments across this country are. So quick synopsis, BC is still amazing. I thought they were number 1. Nope. Turns out there's another province that's far better, and unbelievable how far things have developed in those particular regions. And that's Quebec. Quebec is leading the country. In fact, I think they're an example for the world in what you can do as far as creating an electric highway and EV infrastructure. It's absolutely outstanding there.
Yeah, I'm from Alberta, as you know. So, I still get excited when I see an EV. And I was in Vancouver recently, and I stopped at the lights, and there's 3 Teslas in the same lineup at the same red light, and I was astonished.
Yeah, that was the shock as well. When I crossed over from BC, that just hit the switch the day we met. I think they hit the switch October 1st or somewhere around there. when this whole electric highway went live, and then I crossed over into Alberta. And it was like, crossing over into central and northern Alberta was like entering the realm of Mordor. I mean, at first it seemed promising, but then it just deteriorated. It was so bad. There's no unified effort like we find in BC. Within a few days, I had downloaded a dozen or so private charging apps, half of which didn't work or needed a QR code or something anyway, it was a disaster. And it was this hodgepodge mix of chargers. And I always thought Alberta was also home to capitalism. And I couldn't believe that, if EV trucks are that bad, let them fail. Let them put in all the charges they want, do whatever they want, and then nobody's going to buy them. That's how it works. But that's not how it was working. I was really surprised. It seems that, there was almost this, this effort, a concerted effort at protectionism to stop any kind of expansion. So it was quite a shock, that there was a stifling of adoption. After Slave Lake, it was a desert all the way to Fort McMurray. In fact, Fort Mac was the only city. I can bring this experience now. I've traveled this whole country. And I can say that Fort Mac is the only city of that population, of that size, with 0 open DC fast chargers.
That's crazy.
Why
so
is that?
Tell me, just so I have this in the interview, tell me what they accomplished just as you started your project, the electric highway in BC. Tell me what they did there fairly concisely.
It was really something. So BC Hydro, I used to roast the crap out of BC Hydro on my channel. Well, they either watched it, which I don't think they did, but or I was just behind the curve, and this was all planned. They've made a commitment that on any paved highway in this province, every 150 kilometers, you will find a reliable, working, smooth operating DC fast charger. And that's going right up to the Yukon border. That's in places like Dease Lake, Chetwynd, places like Laird Hot Springs Provincial Park. There is no power lines within 100 kilometers of that park. So what are you going to do? Like laser charge? What are you going to do? And they put in shipping containers with solar panels on top of them and a generator. I mean, they've gone all in. And now they're even replacing some of those chargers with faster ones. And where they're seeing people bringing boats and campers in EV trucks, they're putting pull-through chargers. And I saw this in Quebec as well. In Quebec, they would have 2 chargers per pull-through. So if you just so happened to have a trailer that was powered by batteries, you could charge the trailer and the truck at the same time. And now we're seeing BC Hydro doing this in very remote locations. And they're not slow. I mean, before they were so slow, you slip into a coma while you waited to charge. It was horrible. Now, those are being replaced with 100s, 150s, 200s, and on every major highway in BC, 400. A lot of vehicles aren't even capable of reaching those kind of speeds, so now they're ahead of the curve, having the auto industry catch up to them, where in the past it's always been the other way around. So really good stuff. And you'll see kind of that on steroids in Quebec.
Well, I have to say I was really astonished, and you've undoubtedly seen better in your travels. But when I met you at mile 0 on the Alaska Highway and I walked up to your charger, it was pulling 175 kilowatts into your F-150 Lightning, and I was astonished. I'd never seen that before.
Yeah, and what's really crazy on that is, according to Ford, it's only rated at 155 kilowatt, but the way the Ford Lightning's designed is it has what's called a boost. And for the first 10 or 15 minutes of that high cycle of the curve, it can charge to 185. So if you put that truck next to a Tesla Model 3 or Model Y charging at a 250 kilowatt, they have curves as well. They charge longer as well. But we actually did a couple of tests, which you'll see in future videos on my channel, that there's only about a 3 to 5 minute spread because of that super boost off the start, and it holds so long before it starts to trail off. So it's starting to make travel fine. Just make sure you take your pee breaks and get your muffins and your lunch when you're plugging in. and you're good. And I'm old. I have to take pee breaks like every 10 minutes.
So I know what you're talking about from Alberta. Since I'm from Alberta, I couldn't go to Fort St. John because
Yeah.
our Kona couldn't charge at a Tesla charger, and
Yeah.
that's all that was available between here and there.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do that. But you found a pretty cool charging station in Edmonton. Tell me about that one.
Oh, yeah. That's Charge Stop. This is the entrepreneurial spirit that I actually celebrated about Alberta, and here it was a perfect example of it. So, basically, we're seeing kind of a gas station approach. They're not. They're trying to do it different than what you'd expect from a gas station. So they're having high end product. They're having cappuccinos. They're having, like it's a nice place to stop. So right in the center of oil country, right in the capital of Alberta. I mean, I thought that was pretty bold. That's where they set up their flagship charge stop, and they're planning on franchising these. So there's those who are starting to see the writing on the wall, and they're seeing this big void, and you're going to see a lot of entrepreneurial folk fill those voids. And when that happens, basically, you're now having exclusive fuel stations for EVs. And again, Quebec's an example. There's a company called, I believe it's Road in the United States, that are like super stations where you can go watch movies and, get a pedicure, go do anything at these stations while you charge. So it makes it fun to stop. So you're not really worried too much about waiting, even though the waiting times are really shortening, right across the country. But you've got something to do while you wait, So that's what Charge Stop is up to. And I think they're going to do well. I think they're already, they're making a go of it. So I hope to see a lot more of those popping up across the country, maybe one in Fort Mac.
Well, it's pretty exciting because I hope the days of finding a charger on the back of a store somewhere in the middle of nowhere will be over soon.
Parked outside a laundromat in Lethbridge,
And, it's funny because Electric Autonomy Canada, I don't know if you're aware of them, but they ran a global design competition for charging stations. And some of the winning, it was amazing. Some of the winning designs were great because they catered to, all the things that you would want to do or could do in anywhere from 15 minutes to an hour, and like you could probably watch a movie in some places, depending on your charge speed. In other places, you might just go shopping or get a meal or sit and read a book.
And that was something I noticed across the country where certain provinces and certain companies got it. When you walk up in this, I don't know, a squeegee, a garbage can, a picnic bench, a cover for rain, I don't know, those things they've been doing at gas stations for like 130 bloody years. You know what I mean? You think somebody would have got it, but there's so many places you'll go where you're just in this parking lot field. Like Tesla superchargers across Canada, they're mainly at Canadian Tires. And Canadian Tires are mainly in rural areas because the tax base is lower, and that's where they're able to build there. So you're out in the middle of nowhere, standing at these superchargers, unable to do anything. And then there's others that are seeing, hey, you know what that little bit of time is when they're charging? That's profit. That's a bag of chips.
Absolutely.
That's a Coca-Cola.
And it's better than gas because you've got a few more minutes. I mean, even in time, that time is going to get shorter and shorter, but still 15 minutes, half an hour, whatever. That's a lot of time that, that we can do stuff in, which I actually kind of appreciate having traveled.
I do too.
Because, I don't like driving 600 kilometers in one stretch.
I can't.
It's just too tiring.
I just drove 24,000 kilometers across the second largest landmass country on the planet. There were a lot of stops.
Okay,
there was a lot of cross-leg moments in my truck. Yeah.
What's the story that you've done that got the best reaction so far? The one you're most proud of? Or maybe those are two different stories.
They're very different. The one I'm most proud of is one that's had about 300 views that I put out a week or 2 weeks after I started the channel. And it was about the EV truck tidal wave. and I loved making it. I loved the fact that I'm not a fanboy. If there's something negative about an EV truck, I'm the first to say it. We have to go in eyes wide open and not try to, rose color anything. Charging times take time. You can't tow long distances. These are things that have to be overcome for the general public of a real pickup truck applications. But 85% of people who own pickup trucks go to Walmart. They're glorified SUVs. So they're not, only 7% of people who own pickup trucks have ever towed. So it's reaching out and trying to bring all of that into one place. And I was very proud of that video because I felt it did a lot of pros and cons. And about the adoption that seemed to be something that everybody wanted, but nobody was actually making the darn things at the time. So that was one of my proudest. And it's funny because it's had the least views probably of all my videos. So maybe they'll change it today.
So what's the video that you got the best reaction to?
Top 10 reasons to own an F-150 Lightning. It is currently about a dozen views away from hitting 20,000 views. So it'll be my first video to hit 20,000 views, which on YouTube is pathetically small. But for my channel, it's a great milestone. And that's kind of the direction that the channel's moving. And it took a long time to get there. But I'm very proud of that as well. Very proud of the thumbnail. Had a lot of fun with the thumbnail. But
let's see one of those expressions from one of your thumbnails. Come on, show us. Oh, that's a good one. I like that one. Awesome. Maybe I'll use that one. Okay, so where was your best charging experience? You traveled the whole country. What's the one stop you made? You went, oh man, this is nailing it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, well, that's tough to answer, but there's one that immediately comes to mind. It was at, I believe it's pronounced Couche-Tard. They're like a convenience store, like a 7-Eleven, Quebec company. And there's one in Alberta over the Crow's Nest Pass called Couche-Tard. I believe it's set up with Esso. So again, Quebec company. And is when I returned to BC over the Crow's Nest Pass, coming into to BC from Alberta. And I had just paid what I considered extortionist rates at a Tesla supercharger earlier in the day. It was 93 cents a kilowatt because it didn't have any competition in Lethbridge. So they just bilked non-Tesla people. So it was like 20 cents higher or 10 cents higher than what a Tesla owner would charge. So your non-member, 93 cents. So that's on par with gasoline. So I get to this Couche-Tard, I plug in, and the unit was super fast. The curve was great. And my jaw dropped when it popped up and indicated what I was paying. It was 18 cents a kilowatt hour. It's almost like charging at home, And not only was it smooth and started instantly, it held a charging curve way longer, which meant, your EV is in control of the charger. It makes the rules about how fast things come in and out, not the charger. So whatever it was doing meant my truck was really happy with how things were being delivered. So it was obviously a very good system. And it was charging as fast as the Tesla supercharger. I was charging at 185 kilowatts for like 14 minutes. It was absolutely beautiful. So it was the best price I paid on the entire trip coming back over. But then on top of that, a pile of level 2 chargers at hotels in Quebec, all free. No charge. You're staying at our hotel. So, hotels there's a huge business case starting to emerge that they could be fuel stations as well as hotels. They're building it into the price, but I was like, woohoo. I woke up to a full truck staying at the hotel and my truck was warm and everything else because I was preconditioning because I was plugged in overnight. And then there was one Super 8 East in Winnipeg that had this level 2 charger that was almost as fast as a DC fast charger, free. And free is always nice. So I like that price.
It's funny. So just say a few words about charging infrastructure because it is kind of the Wild West still. You talked about price differentials. I've gone to places with my charger and their chargers are crappy and then they charge you on a time basis. Talk about the Talk about that in as short a wrap up as you can.
You bet. So, worst charging experience I had in Canada. I'm doing a video right now rating 10, the top 10 and worst, going down the list. So I won't reveal my information at this time, but there's something that comes across that I think is horrible. It needs to be treated the same way a gas pump is. A gas pump is regulated. They have to be calibrated. There's a certification, Government of Canada stamp on bloody pump. We need something that conforms to that for the charging network as well. I don't see why it wouldn't. It's critical infrastructure. It's no different critical infrastructure than a gas pump. So charging per minute is a really horrible practice, and it is coming to an end. And we've got to give some credit to Tesla because they challenged the Canadian government and actually got it overturned. So that brought in per kilowatt hour. Thank goodness for that. And a lot of people say, well, I like charging per hour. I do really well. Yeah, it's because your vehicle's fast. So why is it that somebody who can afford a $200,000 super EV car that charges at 350 plus kilowatt hours pays almost nothing, but the person with the used Bolt or the little Leaf pulls in and pays 4 times as much because they can't draw as much kilowatt out of that charger and they're being charged per minute. So the person who has the cheap small EV pays through the teeth while the person who has the super fast pays squat. That's unfair. So we needed to have that democratized. So the per kilowatt hour thing is necessary. I still saw per minute, per hour stuff out in the Maritimes. One province is horrible for it, and Ontario still shows up all over the place. But it's coming to an end, I think. So that, some kind of price cap on whatever the utility rate is.
Or competition. Once we have enough competition.
Well, that would do it. I mean, as soon as we saw competition, there was this place in Quebec that was like this super center of chargers. And Quebec is not shy, like a lot of provinces are, we don't want to put our, utility chargers next to private companies. We don't want to upset them. Well, Quebec's like, right across the street, Hydro-Quebec sets the rate, so we know what you're charging our population, so we're not going to let you get away with it. So they drop them right across the street, and they have good, solid, low rates. And sure enough, the Tesla superchargers across the street from those were the best rates I found with Tesla across the country. But the moment the competition disappeared, I won't use the word. It's bad. And there needs to be either an encouragement of competitive forces, this protectionist stuff where we see where municipalities are declining installations of private charger units. Like, what? So these kind of things, this open entrepreneurial market, things like Charge Stop, allowing these things to be more able to proliferate and compete is very important. Or you've got to have a regulatory cap, because right now, outside of that network that's being created by utilities, we've got a bit of a monopoly in some regions of Canada with one company called Tesla. And monopolies aren't good.
So, Simon, how many videos or stories have you done so far, and where do you plan to take this?
I've done, I think, 60 videos so far. So, I'm just getting going. They say your channel hasn't started until you've done 100 videos. So I'm scrambling, trying to get that going on. I've got all kinds of crazy plans, fun, crazy, goofy plans, but funding holds me back. It's a tiny channel. And currently it's still a losing proposition. So, but I'm passionate about it, and I'll need sponsors to move the needle in the direction I want to go. But in the meantime, I'm going to be connecting with trucked up folk, showing off how they're applying their EV truck. I don't care what kind of EV truck it is, but go into their business, showing how they're using it with their business, their lifestyle, their obsession, which I think does wonders for breaking down fear, uncertainty, and doubt. When truck folks start to see how much money these companies are saving and how versatile these EV trucks are in so many diverse settings, I hope to open the floodgates a bit with my channel on adoption, one informed person at a time. So it's a lot of work, but I'm passionate about it. I'm going to keep going.
So just tell us before I wind up here, what do you drive and what's the range you get?
Well, it depends. What I drive, I just got into my second EV truck. My first one was a work truck. 12 hours after I bought it, the bed was scratched, filled with manure and gravel. It was a work truck 6 days a week. This one's more of a channel truck. So I went from a Ford Lightning XLT standard range to a Ford F-150 Flash 2024 extended range. And that has the heat pump. One of the big reasons I want to buy it was to showcase that for my viewers, because many of them are curious about winter improvements. And there's already been some amazing discoveries on that in some of my videos. So that's what I'm driving. I get range, depends. When I'm highway only, you're not getting anywhere near your EPA of 515, because EPA rating of 515 kilometers is mixed driving. And all these channels that are out there saying, well, it doesn't get anywhere near EPA. Well, you're driving it at 75 miles an hour on a freeway. You know, that's not average mixed driving. So I find I get about 400 kilometers when I'm doing Trans-Canada Highway stuff. And I'm getting very close to EPA when I'm doing mixed driving. With my standard range, I got far above EPA in the summer, far above. And I think that would be the same with the Flash, but I haven't had the summer numbers yet. And again, it's use case. When I put loads in the truck, I don't see a drop in range at all. When I tow, I see a big drop in range.
Interesting.
So again, application specific, right?
I wonder if that's, so when you're towing, are you towing a trailer with brakes on it?
No, I've only towed a utility trailer for my work, the business that I recently sold last year. So that was landscaping and gardening. That's what the trailer was always filled with brush or whatever, going to the transfer station, or full of dirt or manure or chips or whatever. So it was always pulling maybe about 1,500 pounds max, 2,000, I think was the rating on the trailer. So it wasn't doing the big stuff. And that didn't really affect range that much because I was driving slower.
Yeah.
So the faster you go and the more aerodynamic brick that you're pulling, that's something that hasn't changed in 150 years, just like the pickup truck, is people like to pull around bricks.
Well, ironically, the big problem with highway driving is you don't use your regenerative braking.
There's the other thing. That's a big part of it. And I live in the mountains. So I'm up and down like a yo-yo, and I'm using regen so much and I'm driving at speeds under 90 kilometers an hour on average. So with my XLT that was rated to 386 kilometers, I was averaging 440 in the summer for the 6 months of the year.
So Simon, tell us where we can find you.
Well, it depends on where I am. They can simply type in Trucked Up EVs on a YouTube search bar. In Facebook, same. Again, if you type in Trucked Up EVs on Facebook, you're going to find me. Blue Sky, I don't use X. I'm using Blue Sky, which is kind of a Twitter alternative. And again, type in Trucked Up EVs in the search line, and you'll find me right away.
Okay. Well, is there anything else I should ask you?
I just want to thank you for the chance of doing this interview and reaching out to all your peeps.
Well, I think it's super ironic that we stumbled across each other at a charging station at mile 0 on the Alaska Highway.
That's pretty cool, actually.
What are the odds?
What are the odds? Yeah. And to all your Alberta t-shirt wearers.
Okay.
Change some lettering.
Okay, well, thanks a lot for taking the time. Good luck with your channel. I find your stories really fascinating, and they're of all lengths, and like some are short, some are longer. You just do what you need to do, and that seems to determine what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for watching them.
Okay, well, have a great day, and thanks again.